What is the Philippine experience on making early warning systems inclusive to the needs of persons with disabilities? My presentation will revolve around shedding light to this question. According to the World Risk Report of 2018, the Philippines ranked third among all of the countries worldwide with the highest risks, with at least 60% of the country's total land area being exposed to multiple hazards. 74% of the population is susceptible to their impact. To keep the public informed of possible storm surges, floods, or landslides, the Department of Science and Technology, or DOST of the Philippines, has developed an early warning system that warns residents in densely populated areas up to 48 hours in advance. Advisories are shared to the Office of Civil Defense, local government units, and the media. Early warning systems are further enhanced by the Free Mobile Disaster Alert Act of 2014, which mandates telecommunication operators to issue free public warnings via mobile phones. Article 11 of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or UNCRPD, states the right to protection and safety of persons with disabilities in events of a disaster. In many cases, their living conditions and poverty exacerbates their vulnerability to disasters. Disability is closely linked to poverty, as one may cause the other. With more than 1 billion people living some form of disability, it is estimated that persons with disabilities account for 15% of the world's total population. They are overwhelmingly affected by disasters. Despite this, early warning systems for disasters are often not adapted to their needs. Under Republic Act 10121, or the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010, persons with disabilities are classified as vulnerable and marginalized groups. It is recognized that they face higher exposure to disaster risk and poverty. However, without accurate data as to who or where they are, reaching them could be difficult. Visibility through data is an important consideration in ensuring the safety and protection of persons with disabilities during disaster situations. The country's data collection systems have yet to reflect accurate accounts of persons with disabilities. They need to be included when designing early warning systems to ensure that the methods used are relevant to the needs of persons with disabilities. Handicap International cites 3 general principles in making early warning systems inclusive. First, all people can be reached by early warning system if they include many forms of communication. Second, early warning system needs to strengthen informal linkages and build upon people's capacities to respond. And third, early warning system is easy, cost-effective, and can be done within the community. Audio signals such as bells, alarms, sirens, radio, drums, and loudspeaker announcements are recommended for those with physical or visual impairments. On the other hand, visual signs in big font and flashy colors used in leaflets, posters, pictures, and flags are suggested for those with hearing or speech impairment. Auditory and visual signals, as well as gestures and body language, are for those with intellectual or mental impairment. It must be stressed that disability-inclusive early warning systems need to be developed in the preparedness phase, with support of persons with disabilities or actors working with them, and should be field tested. Local consultations in the Philippines yielded similar insights. It is recommended to develop simple and visual warning signals such as red, yellow, and green flags, to implement lighting systems or simple weather advisory, and to have deaf interpreters sign the updated weather forecast in televisions. Early warning signals must be sent to the targeted people, including the most vulnerable, such as persons with disabilities, so that no one is left behind. It is argued that very little has been done to develop disability-inclusive early warnings in the Asia-Pacific region. In the Philippines, there is limited literature on early warning systems being adapted to the needs of persons with disabilities. With what is available, several local studies point out the challenges in current situation. For example, in Marikina City, it's found that in National Capital Region, villages are taking steps toward inclusion. However, they still lag behind the ideals set by international guidelines. For the most part, inclusion is limited to prioritizing in rescue operations. Among those lacking are accessible early warning devices. It was also found out that early warnings are typically limited to audio signals. In another study conducted in Albay province in the Philippines, it was found out that there are early warning devices considered as disability inclusive, which is of course suitable for people with hearing or visual impairments. In terms of implementation, however, it was observed that if flags are in place, they are not always used. It is further reported that only a handful had established an office to address concerns of people with disabilities, even if it is provided under the law or Republic Act 10070. Moreover, it is observed that early warning devices in local government units are not sensitive to the needs of persons with disabilities. In most cases, only sirens are used, but it does not effectively reach those with hearing impairments. Given the limitations and challenges faced by the government in implementing inclusive early warning systems, it recognizes the pivotal role of non-government organizations, the private sector, and the media. A multi-stakeholder approach is used in disaster risk reduction activities, including early warning systems and emergency broadcast systems. It is evident that the Philippines still has a long way to go in ensuring that early warning systems are inclusive. Nevertheless, there are also good examples at the local level. In 2017, the Foundation for Disabled Persons Incorporated, or FTI, embarked on disaster preparedness activities. The organization believes that persons with disabilities should always be safe from disasters and must be involved in any preparations for disasters. Another example is the pilot of the Scale Up, Build Up project, or SUBU, in Guruyan, which is a village situated near an active volcano in the Philippines. The early warning system of the village works both with sound and visual signs. Villagers are assigned to warn persons with disabilities in case they do not see the flags. Community drills are also conducted to support the early warning system. In another case, the Dumaguete Efata Association of the Deaf is implementing a program to increase access to hearing-oriented disaster risk reduction and management efforts. It recognizes that sound-based signals, such as sirens or alarms, generally fail to alert persons who are deaf to the dangers of ongoing disasters. To address this, the organization DEF is working to produce a Filipino Sign Language lexicon for climate disasters and other related signs for inclusion in visual early warning materials. A final case to highlight steps in making early warning systems inclusive is the project implemented by the Center for Disaster Preparedness, or CDP. It was pilot tested in several municipalities in Eastern Samar. This is to promote the rights of persons with disabilities. Early warning systems in the pilot municipalities were reconfigured to be inclusive to the needs of persons with disabilities, especially those with visual and hearing issues. They utilized flags, which may be seen by persons with hearing issues. This was complemented by the use of local sirens that we call locally as batingao. These were used and were heard by persons with visual issues. A buddy system was also used when sending out alerts. On top of participating in planning and designing early warning systems, persons with disabilities were also able to partake in simulation exercises to test out the suitability of the early warning systems. Here are my final thoughts. The Philippines still has much to do in ensuring that its early warning systems are inclusive. But it may build on the good practices and lessons learned in pilot projects and in model local government units. Multiple communication methods must be utilized to address the range of specific needs of persons with different types of disabilities. Moreover, training on inclusive early warning systems must also be provided to their family and community members. I am Edwin Salonga from the Philippines, and thank you for listening.